Let's take a look at the final form of a business entity, which is company. In this part, you'll be able to learn how to register a company, the legal personality of a company, the consequences of incorporation of a company, and the types of company, which you can find on the slide. There are various legislation that governs the company's actions. The first one is the Companies Act 1965, followed by Security Industry Act 1983. Thirdly is the Securities Commission Act 1993, and finally the Companies Commission of Malaysia Act 2001. The governing bodies responsible for the regulation of companies, Companies Commission of Malaysia, CCM, the Bursa Malaysia Securities Berhad, Pengurusan Dana Harta Nasional Berhad, and Securities Commission of Malaysia. Now kindly take a look at the website as stated on the slides for more information. There are several types of companies. If you were to see on the slides, there are 10 types of companies, ranging from unlimited company, company limited by shares, a company limited by guarantee, a holding company, a subsidiary company, a foreign company, a private company, an exempt private company, and finally, public company. The most important feature of a company is that upon incorporation, it acquires a legal personality or a legal entity. For an example, the company is generally viewed as a person in itself with an identity that is distinct and separate from those of its members, shareholders, and directors. When a company becomes a corporate body, the consequences of that is due to its legal personality, which means that the liability of its members may be limited, meaning that if the company incurs debts, the members' liability will be limited to the amount they have contributed or agreed to contribute to the company's assets. The procedure to register a company can be seen on the slide, whereby at first there must be a reservation of name of the company, followed by a memorandum and articles of association together with statutory declarations. In order to register a company, one must look into Companies Act of Malaysia 1965, and perhaps you would like to take a look at the SSM online website, where there is a 1-hour registration procedure. Now, any 2 or more persons can register a company. There must be Malaysians in order to register for sole proprietorships or partnerships, including registering a company in Malaysia. Now, registration of a name. When it comes to this issue, one must inquire from the Registrar of Companies whether the name proposed for the company is available or otherwise. If it is already being used by another entity, then one has to come up with another name. The applicants for the registration of a company must deposit the company's articles and memorandum of association with the registrar, along with other documents that may be required under Section 18 of Companies Act 1965. The person mentioned in the memorandum or articles of association, namely the company's secretary, is required to make and submit to the Registrar of Companies a statutory declaration using the prescribed form. The person must also ensure that there is compliance in accordance with the Companies Act 1965 in order for the issuance of Certificate of Corporation. In this next slide, you will be able to see the advantages and disadvantages of forming a company. When it comes to the advantages, the amount of liability will be limited to the total amount of the investor's investment. So that is known as limited liability. Secondly, with a company incorporated, it will be able to attract capital due to the protection of limited liability, where corporations need to prove the most effective form of ownership for accumulating large amounts of capital. When it comes to a continuance of a company, there is this ability to continue indefinitely when it comes to the running of the company, unlike a sole proprietorship or partnership, where in those cases the death of a founder ends the business. Finally, the ownership of a company is transferable. If shareholders in a corporation are displeased or are dissatisfied with the business's progress, they can sell their shares to someone else. Now, the disadvantages can cover several issues. First and foremost, the cost of registering a company. Usually, the compliance with the Companies Act 1965 in order to register a company is strict, and there are certain procedures that must be complied with before and after the company is registered. Secondly, there is a lack of confidentiality in the sense that there must be disclosure or transparency when it comes to the running of the company in order to avoid fraud and abuse of power within the company. When it comes to the issue of separation between control and ownership, where shareholders may have contributed capital to the company and therefore they theoretically own the company, this does not necessarily mean that they control the company as such. This is due to the fact that the company's articles usually bestow upon the company directors the power to manage the company. Last disadvantage would be the over-regulation, in the sense that the companies and the owners or the various stakeholders are subjected to numerous laws and regulations.